"Callum, wait." Her voice cracked as she stumbled forward, mud slicking her knees, breath tearing from her lungs in ragged gasps. The trees around her blurred into dark streaks. Her husband was 50 feet ahead, walking through the clearing like a man in a trance, shoulders loose, that same gentle smile on his face. The smile she'd kissed 1,000 mornings. The smile that now made her stomach twist with terror. He didn't stop. He didn't even turn. "Callum, please. What is this place?" Then she saw them. 5 figures stood in a loose circle at the center of the clearing. Silent. Still. Faces pale in the early morning mist. One of them, a woman with silver-streaked hair, reached out her hand. And Callum, her husband of 9 years, the man who made her breakfast every Sunday, the man who hummed old songs while folding laundry, took it. And smiled wider. That's when Natalie felt her knees buckle. That's when the world she knew shattered. "Hello, my amazing family and friends. I'm so glad you're here with me again today. If you're ready to dive into another powerful story, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and drop a comment telling me the country or city you're watching from. And guess what? Tomorrow, I've got another story lined up that will leave you just as captivated, so don't miss it. Now, let's get started. Natalie Brennan had always been the kind of woman who believed in simple truths. Love was steady. Marriage was work. Trust was earned and kept. For 9 years, she'd lived by those beliefs, and they had held her world together like sturdy beams in a well-built house. She and Callum weren't the couple people whispered about at parties. They didn't fight in grocery store aisles or post cryptic messages online. They were quiet, comfortable, real. Every morning, Callum woke before dawn. He'd slip out of bed while Natalie was still curled beneath the quilt her grandmother had stitched, and by the time she stirred, he'd already be dressed. Jeans, flannel shirt, work boots laced tight. He'd kiss her forehead, smelling of soap and something earthy, something warm, and he'd leave. Always smiling. Always calm. "Where do you go so early?" she'd asked once years ago, her voice still thick with sleep. "Just checking the land," he'd said, brushing a strand of auburn hair from her face. "Making sure everything's where it should be." She'd believed him. Why wouldn't she? Callum worked for the county doing forestry surveys. He spent his days walking acres of woodland, measuring tree health, marking trails, documenting wildlife. It made sense that he'd start early. It made sense that he'd come home smelling like pine and damp soil. But lately, something had shifted. It wasn't one big thing. It was 100 small things. The way he stared out the kitchen window with his coffee growing cold in his hands. The way he laughed at her jokes a half-second too late, like he had to pull himself back from somewhere far away. The way he touched her at night, gentle and present, but somehow distant. Like his body was there, but his mind had wandered into a forest she couldn't follow him into. And the smiling. God, the smiling. It never stopped. Even when the hot water heater broke and flooded the basement. Even when his brother called to say their mother had fallen and fractured her hip. Even when Natalie burned the roast so badly the smoke alarm screamed for 10 minutes straight. Callum just smiled, soft and easy, like nothing could touch him. Like he was floating. It scared her more than she wanted to admit. So on a cold Thursday morning in late October, when the sky was still bruised with twilight and the trees outside their cabin were skeletal and dripping with fog, Natalie made a decision. She was going to follow him. She waited until she heard the front door close. Then she counted to 30, her heart hammering against her ribs like a prisoner trying to escape. She threw on her jacket, slipped into her boots, and stepped out into the freezing dawn. The gravel driveway crunched softly under her feet. She could see Callum's silhouette ahead, moving through the mist like a ghost. He didn't take the truck. He never did on these mornings. He just walked, hands in his pockets, that same unhurried stride, heading toward the tree line that bordered their property. Natalie stayed back, keeping to the shadows, her breath puffing out in pale clouds. Her fingers were already numb. She should have grabbed gloves. But there was no time. If she lost sight of him now, she'd lose her nerve. He entered the woods. She followed. The forest swallowed the light. Overhead, the branches twisted together like arthritic fingers, blocking out what little sun had started to rise. The ground was soft with moss and rotting leaves. Every step she took seemed too loud, too obvious. But Callum didn't look back. Not once. He moved like a man who knew exactly where he was going. Natalie's mind raced. Maybe he really was just surveying. Maybe she was being paranoid. Maybe the stress of the last few months, her father's dementia, the bills piling up, the quiet space growing between them in bed, maybe all of it had made her see shadows where there were none. But then why did her gut feel like it was tied in knots? They walked for nearly 20 minutes. Deeper. Darker. The air grew colder, heavier, like the forest was holding its breath. And then, just as Natalie was about to call out, just as she was about to end this foolish chase and go home, Callum stopped. He stood at the edge of a clearing she'd never seen before. Natalie ducked behind a wide oak, her pulse roaring in her ears. The clearing was circular, maybe 30 feet across, ringed by ancient trees whose trunks were scarred and knotted. In the center, the ground was bare. No grass. No leaves. Just dark, packed earth. And standing in that circle waiting were 5 people. 3 women. 2 men. They were dressed simply. Wool sweaters. Long skirts. Old-fashioned clothes, like something out of a photograph from the 1940s. Their faces were pale, serene, untouched by the cold. And they were all smiling. That same smile. Callum stepped forward, and the woman with the silver-streaked hair, the one standing at the center, extended her hand. "Welcome back, Callum," she said. Her voice was soft, melodic, like water over stones. "Thank you, Iris," Callum said. His voice. God, his voice. It sounded lighter. Younger. Like a boy. Natalie's hands trembled as she gripped the rough bark of the tree. Her mind couldn't make sense of what she was seeing. Who were these people? Why was Callum here? What did welcome back mean? The man to Iris's left, older, with a thick gray beard and kind eyes, stepped forward and clapped Callum on the shoulder. "You look well, son." "I feel well, Monroe," Callum said, and he laughed. A real laugh. The kind Natalie hadn't heard from him in months. One of the younger women, blonde and small-boned, handed Callum something. A cup. Wooden, hand-carved. Steam rose from whatever was inside. "Drink," Iris said gently. "It'll help you stay." Stay. That word lodged in Natalie's chest like a splinter. Callum raised the cup to his lips. And that's when Natalie moved. She didn't think. She didn't plan. She just ran. "Callum, wait." Her voice exploded into the clearing, sharp and wild. All 5 of them turned. Callum's face went white. The cup slipped from his fingers and hit the ground, spilling dark liquid into the dirt. "Natalie." His voice was strangled, disbelieving. She stumbled into the clearing, chest heaving, eyes darting between him and the strangers. What is this? Who are these people? Iris stepped forward, her expression unreadable. Calm. Too calm. "You shouldn't be here." "Like hell I shouldn't," Natalie shot back, her fear turning sharp-edged and hot. "That's my husband. What are you doing to him?" "Nothing he doesn't want," Iris said simply. Natalie's gaze snapped to Callum. "What does that mean?" He looked at her, and for the first time in months, she saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt. Shame. Pain. "Nat." His voice cracked. "I didn't want you to find out like this." "Find out what?" Her voice rose, brittle as glass. "Callum, what is going on?" He opened his mouth, closed it. His hands hung useless at his sides. Monroe, the older man, spoke instead. His voice was deep, gentle, like a grandfather telling a bedtime story. "Your husband has been coming here for 6 months, ma'am. Every morning. Seeking what he lost." "What he lost?" Natalie's breath came fast and shallow. "What does that mean?" Callum finally met her eyes. And what she saw there broke something inside her. "I've been so tired, Nat," he whispered. "For so long. And they helped me forget." The world tilted. Natalie felt the ground shift beneath her boots, felt the cold sink into her bones, felt everything she thought she knew crack wide open. Forget what? She whispered. But Callum just looked away. And Iris smiled. What would you do if the person you loved most was hiding a part of themselves you never knew existed? Drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. ***. Natalie's hands curled into fists. Her nails bit into her palms, grounding her, keeping her from floating away into the nightmare unraveling in front of her. She took a step toward Callum, her boots sinking slightly into the soft earth of the clearing. Callum, look at me. He didn't. Look at me. His head lifted slowly, and the man she saw was a stranger. His eyes were glassy, unfocused, like he was looking at her through water. The warmth she'd fallen in love with, the steady presence that had held her through her father's diagnosis and her miscarriage 3 years ago, it was gone. Replaced by something hollow. Something fading. Tell me the truth, she said, her voice shaking. Right now. What is this place? Who are these people? Iris stepped between them, her movements fluid and unbothered. He comes here to rest, Mrs. Brennan. That's all. We offer peace. Stillness. A place where the weight of the world doesn't crush him. That's insane, Natalie spat. You're talking like he's broken. Like I'm not enough. It's not about you, Iris said softly, and somehow that made it worse. Natalie's throat tightened. She looked past Iris, directly at Callum. Is that true? Am I not enough? Nat, don't. Answer me. Silence swallowed the clearing. Even the wind seemed to stop. The other 4 strangers stood perfectly still, watching with expressions that were kind but unmoved. Like they'd seen this scene before. Callum's shoulders sagged. When he spoke, his voice was so quiet she almost didn't hear it. I don't know how to carry it anymore. Carry what? Tears blurred her vision, hot and furious. Everything. His hands lifted, helpless. The job. The bills. Your dad. Losing the baby. Losing us. We didn't lose us, Natalie said, her voice breaking. We're right here. No. He shook his head slowly. You're here. I've been gone for a long time. The words hit her like a fist to the chest. So what, she said, voice rising. You just come out here every morning and... What? Pretend to be someone else? Smile like nothing's wrong while I'm home thinking everything's fine. I wasn't pretending, Callum said. When I'm here, I actually feel fine. I feel light. I feel free. Natalie finished bitterly. He flinched. Iris's voice cut in, smooth and patient. We don't take anything from him, Mrs. Brennan. We simply hold what he can't. His sorrow. His fear. His exhaustion. We keep it safe so he doesn't have to. Natalie stared at her. That's not real. You can't just remove pain. That's not how life works. Isn't it? Iris tilted her head. People do it every day. Medication. Alcohol. Work. Distraction. We're just more honest about it. You're manipulating him. We're helping him survive. Natalie's breath hitched. She wanted to scream. Wanted to grab Callum and drag him out of this cursed clearing and never look back. But something stopped her. A terrible, creeping thought. What if he didn't want to leave? She looked at him again, really looked, and saw the truth in the slump of his shoulders, the distant look in his eyes. He was already halfway gone. Natalie's legs felt weak. She forced herself to stand taller, to keep her voice steady even though everything inside her was screaming. Callum, she said, softer now. Please. Come home with me. Right now. We can talk about this. We can figure it out together. He looked at her, and for just a second something flickered in his face. Recognition. Longing. But then it faded, like a candle snuffed out. I can't, Nat. Yes, you can. You just walk away. We leave. Right now. You don't understand, he said, his voice thin. When I'm here, I don't feel like I'm drowning. I don't wake up with my chest so tight I can't breathe. I don't spend every minute wondering if I'm failing you, failing everyone. I just exist. And it doesn't hurt. Tears spilled down Natalie's cheeks. But you're hurting me. Don't you see that? His face crumpled. I never wanted to hurt you. Then stop this. Come home. Iris raised a hand, gentle but firm. Mrs. Brennan, I think it's best if you go. This is Callum's choice. He's been coming here of his own free will. We've never forced him. We never would. Natalie's eyes blazed. You've poisoned him. I don't know how, I don't know what kind of cult this is, but you've made him believe he needs you. We've given him what he asked for, Iris replied calmly. Rest. Relief. A place where he doesn't have to pretend to be strong. That's what marriage is for. Natalie's voice cracked wide open. That's what I'm for. He's supposed to come to me when he's broken, not to strangers in the woods. Monroe stepped forward, his weathered face kind but unyielding. Sometimes the people we love most are the ones we can't bear to burden. Natalie shook her head, furious, helpless. That's a lie. That's just an excuse to run away. Maybe, Monroe said quietly. But it's his lie to tell. She turned back to Callum, desperation clawing at her throat. Do you even love me anymore? His face shattered. Of course I do. Then prove it. Walk away from this. Right now. Choose me. The silence that followed was unbearable. Callum stood there, frozen, his hands trembling at his sides. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. And then, in a voice so small it barely existed, he whispered, I don't know if I can. Natalie felt the ground fall out from under her. She staggered backward, her hand flying to her mouth. The world blurred. The trees. The clearing. The strangers with their two calm faces. All of it melted into a smear of color and cold. Nat, wait. But she was already running. She crashed through the underbrush, branches tearing at her jacket, roots catching her boots. She didn't care. She just needed to get away. Away from that place. Away from the look on his face. Away from the truth that was too terrible to hold. Behind her, she heard Callum shout her name. But he didn't follow. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs gave out, until she collapsed against a tree and sobbed so hard she thought she might break apart. The forest around her was silent, indifferent. The fog hung low and thick, swallowing her cries. For a long time she just sat there, shaking, her mind a storm of confusion and grief. Then, slowly, she forced herself to stand. She wiped her face with her sleeve, steadied her breathing, and she made a decision. She wasn't giving up. Not on him. Not on them. If Callum couldn't choose her right now, then she'd have to find out why. She'd have to understand what those people had done to him, what they were offering that she couldn't. And she'd have to fight for him, even if he didn't know he needed fighting for. Natalie turned and started walking back toward the cabin, her jaw set, her heart heartbroken but not broken. Not yet. When she got home, the house felt emptier than it ever had. The coffee pot was still warm. Callum's mug sat on the counter, half full, abandoned. She picked it up and poured it down the sink, watching the dark liquid swirl and disappear. Then she sat down at the kitchen table, pulled out her phone, and started searching. Cults in the woods. Psychological manipulation. Isolation tactics. She didn't even know what she was looking for, but she needed something. Some explanation. Some way to make sense of the impossible. Hours passed. The sun rose higher, pale and cold through the windows. Natalie's eyes burned from staring at the screen, but she didn't stop. And then she found something. A forum post. Small. Buried deep in a thread about strange disappearances in rural Oregon. My brother started acting different last year. Distant. Always smiling. He'd leave early in the morning and come back calm. Too calm. I followed him once. Found him in a clearing with a group of people I'd never seen before. They called themselves the Stillwater Circle. Said they helped people let go of pain. He never came home after that. If anyone knows anything about them, please contact me. Natalie's blood ran cold. Stillwater Circle. She searched the name. Found 2 more posts. Same story. Different people. All in the Pacific Northwest. All describing the same thing. Loved ones who started disappearing into the woods. Who came back changed. Who eventually stopped coming back at all. Her hands shook as she typed a reply. I need help. My husband has been going to them. I don't know how to get him back. She hit send. Then she sat there, staring at the screen, waiting. An hour later, her phone buzzed. A message. From a username she didn't recognize. Don't go back there alone. They won't let him leave unless he wants to. And by the time he wants to, it's usually too late. But there's a way. Meet me tomorrow. I'll tell you everything I know. Natalie's heart hammered in her chest. She typed back quickly. Where? The reply came fast. The diner off Route 22. Noon. Come alone. Natalie closed her eyes and exhaled slowly. Tomorrow. She had until tomorrow to figure out what she was going to say to Callum when he came home tonight. If he came home tonight. The hours crawled by. She tried to eat. Couldn't. Tried to sleep. Couldn't. She paced the living room, her mind spinning in circles, replaying every moment from the clearing. Every word. Every look. And then, just as the sun was setting, she heard the front door open. Her breath caught. Footsteps in the hallway. Callum appeared in the doorway, his face drawn, his eyes red-rimmed. They stared at each other. I'm sorry, he said finally, his voice hoarse. Natalie didn't move. Are you? I didn't want you to see that. I didn't want you to know. But I do know. So now what? He looked down at his hands. I don't expect you to understand. You're right. I don't. She crossed her arms, her voice shaking. But I want to. I need to. So talk to me, Callum. Really talk to me. Not the edited version. Not the version that protects me. The truth. He was quiet for a long time. Then he sank down onto the couch, his head in his hands. I've been tired for so long, Nat, longer than you know. It started after we lost the baby. Maybe even before. I couldn't carry it. Couldn't carry you and me and all the things we were supposed to be. I felt like I was failing. Every single day. And I couldn't tell you because you were hurting too, and I didn't want to add to it. Natalie's throat tightened. So I started walking, he continued. Just to clear my head. And one morning I found that clearing. Found them. And Iris, she knew. She looked at me and she knew everything I was carrying. And she said they could help. That I didn't have to hold it all alone. But you're not alone, Natalie whispered. You have me. I know. His voice broke. But I couldn't let you see how broken I was. I thought if I could just fix myself first, then I could come back to you whole. But it didn't work that way. The more I went, the more I needed to go. And now I don't know how to stop. Natalie knelt down in front of him, her hands on his knees. Then let me help you stop. He looked at her, his eyes full of so much pain it hurt to see. What if I can't? He whispered. Then we'll figure it out together, she said. But you have to try. You have to want to. I do want to. I just don't know if wanting is enough. She took his face in her hands, forcing him to look at her. It is. It has to be. Because I'm not losing you to that place. I'm not losing you to them. A tear slipped down his cheek. I'm scared, Nat. I know. Me too. They stayed like that for a long time, holding each other in the fading light, two people trying desperately to find their way back to something they'd lost without realizing it. And for the first time in months, Callum didn't smile. He just cried. The next morning, Natalie left early while Callum was still asleep. She didn't wake him. Didn't leave a note. She just slipped out the door and drove 20 minutes down Route 22 to the diner, her hands gripping the wheel so tight her knuckles went white. The diner was small, outdated, with cracked vinyl booths and a flickering neon sign that read Rosie's. She parked and went inside, the smell of burnt coffee and grease hitting her immediately. A woman sat in the far corner booth. Mid-40s maybe. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. tired eyes. She looked up when Natalie walked in and gave a small nod. Natalie slid into the seat across from her. "You're the one who messaged me?" Natalie asked. The woman nodded. "My name's Kendall. My brother, Jamie, he got involved with the Stillwater Circle 2 years ago." Is he okay?" Kendall's face hardened. "No. He's gone. Not dead. Just gone. He lives with them now. Somewhere deeper in the woods. I haven't seen him in 8 months." Natalie's stomach dropped. "I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be smart." Kendall leaned forward. "They're not what they seem. They don't just help people cope. They take them. Slowly. Piece by piece. Until there's nothing left but the shell." "How?" "I don't know exactly. Some kind of ritual. Something they give them to drink. It's not drugs, at least not anything that shows up on tests. But it changes people. Makes them dependent. Makes them forget why they ever wanted to leave." Natalie's heart pounded. "Callum drank something yesterday. They gave him a cup." Kendall's expression darkened. "Then you don't have much time. What do I do?" "You have to make him see what he's losing. Really see it. Not just hear it. They've made him numb, Natalie. You have to wake him up." "How?" Kendall reached into her bag and pulled out a small, worn notebook. She slid it across the table. "This belonged to Jamie. I found it in his room after he stopped coming home. It's everything he felt before he found them. His pain. His fears. His love for us. I read it to him once, when I tracked him down. And for just a minute I saw him again. The real him." Natalie picked up the notebook, her hands trembling. "It didn't bring him back," Kendall said quietly. "But it cracked the shell. And maybe, if you're lucky, that's all you need." Natalie looked up, tears burning in her eyes. "Thank you." Kendall nodded. "Fight for him. But know when to let go. Because if he doesn't want to be saved, you'll destroy yourself trying." Natalie left the diner with the notebook clutched to her chest and a plan forming in her mind. She was going to remind Callum of who they were. And she was going to make him choose. The drive home felt longer than it should have. Natalie kept glancing at the notebook on the passenger seat, its leather cover cracked and faded. Someone else's pain. Someone else's love. But maybe, just maybe, it held the key to bringing Callum back. When she pulled into the driveway, his truck was still there. Relief flooded through her. He hadn't left. Hadn't gone back to them. Not yet. She found him in the kitchen, staring out the window with a cup of coffee going cold in his hands. The same faraway look. The same untouchable calm. Callum. He turned slowly, and she saw it again. That distance. Like he was looking at her through glass. "Where'd you go?" he asked quietly. "Out," she said. "I needed to think." He nodded, accepting it without question. That should have reassured her. Instead, it made her chest ache. The old Callum would have pressed. Would have worried. Would have cared enough to ask twice. She set her purse down and walked over to him. "Can we talk? Really talk? We talked last night." "No. You talked. I listened. Now I need you to listen to me." Something flickered in his eyes. Uncertainty, maybe. Or fear. But he nodded. They sat at the kitchen table, the same table where they'd shared 1,000 meals, paid bills, planned dreams that now felt like they belonged to different people. Natalie took a breath. "Do you remember our wedding day?" Callum blinked. "Of course. Tell me about it." "Nat, why? Please. Just tell me." He was quiet for a moment, his fingers tracing the rim of his mug. "It rained," he said finally. "Poured, actually. Your aunt said it was good luck, but you were so stressed you nearly cried." "I did cry," Natalie said softly. A small smile tugged at his lips. "Yeah, you did. And I told you it didn't matter. That we could get married in a mudslide and I'd still be the happiest man alive." And then what happened? The rain stopped. Right before you walked down the aisle. The sun came out, and you. He trailed off, his eyes distant. You were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. Natalie's throat tightened. Do you still see me that way? His smile faded. Nat. Do you? He looked down. I don't see much of anything anymore. She reached across the table and took his hand. His skin was cold. Then let me help you see again. I don't think you can. Why not? Because I don't think I want to. The words hung in the air like smoke. Natalie pulled her hand back slowly, her heart cracking clean down the middle. You don't mean that. I do. His voice was flat, empty. Seeing means feeling. Feeling means hurting. And I'm so tired of hurting, Nat. I just want it to stop. So you'd rather feel nothing? You'd rather disappear. If that's what it takes. She stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. That's not living, Callum. That's dying. Slowly. And you're asking me to just stand here and watch. I'm not asking you to do anything, he said quietly. You can leave. I'd understand. Natalie's hand shook. Is that what you want? For me to leave? He didn't answer. She waited. 5 seconds. 10. 15. Still nothing. A sob caught in her throat, but she swallowed it down. She wouldn't cry. Not now. Not when he was this far gone. Instead, she walked to the bedroom, pulled a small wooden box from the closet, and brought it back to the kitchen. She set it on the table in front of him. What's this? He asked. Open it. He hesitated, then lifted the lid. Inside were pieces of their life. A ticket stub from the first movie they ever saw together. A napkin from the diner where he'd proposed, her yes still scribbled on it in her handwriting. A photo of them on their honeymoon, standing on a beach in North Carolina, his arm around her waist, both of them laughing. A dried flower from her bouquet. A letter he'd written her when he was away on a work trip, telling her how much he missed the sound of her voice. Callum stared down at it, his face unreadable. This is us, Natalie said, her voice breaking. This is what we built. What we were. And I know you're tired. I know you're hurting. But all of this, it's real. It's worth fighting for. We're worth fighting for. He picked up the photo, his thumb brushing over their faces. For a long moment, he just looked at it. Then he set it down and closed the box. I'm sorry, Nat, he whispered. I don't feel anything when I look at this. Her world collapsed. She stepped back, her vision blurring with tears. Nothing. Nothing. Not even a little. He shook his head. Natalie turned away, her hand covering her mouth, trying desperately not to fall apart in front of him. But it was too much. Too big. Too devastating. Then they've already taken you, she said, her voice barely audible. Maybe, he said. Or maybe they just gave me permission to let go. She spun around, anger flashing hot and sudden. Let go of what? Me. Us. Everything we've been through. Let go of the weight, he said. The guilt. The fear that I'm never going to be enough. You are enough, she shouted. You've always been enough. But you've convinced yourself you're not, and now you're running to strangers who are feeding you lies. They're not lies. Yes, they are. Tears streamed down her face. They're telling you that you can just erase the hard parts and keep the easy ones. But that's not how life works, Callum. You don't get to cherry pick what you feel. You don't get to throw away the pain and expect the love to stay. Why not? His voice rose for the first time, raw and desperate. Why do I have to carry all of it? Why can't I just be free? Because freedom without connection is just loneliness, she cried. And that's all you'll have left if you keep going back there. You'll be free. And you'll be completely alone. He stared at her, his chest heaving. And then, slowly, he stood. I need to go, he said. Natalie's blood turned to ice. Go where? I need to think. Callum, no. Don't go back there. Please. I'm not making any promises. Then make one. She grabbed his arm, desperate. Promise me you won't go back today. Just today. Give me one more day. He looked down at her hand on his arm, then back at her face. One day, he said finally. She let out a shaky breath. Thank you. He pulled away gently and walked out the back door, into the yard. Natalie watched him through the window as he sat down on the porch steps, his head in his hands. She wanted to go to him, wanted to wrap her arms around him and hold him until the world made sense again. But she didn't. Instead, she sat down at the table, opened Kendall's brother's notebook, and began to read. The entries were raw, painful, full of fear and self-doubt and love so deep it ached. I don't know how to tell them I'm drowning. I don't know how to ask for help without feeling like I'm failing them. I smile because it's easier than explaining why I'm sad. I'm scared that if I let them see the real me, they won't love me anymore. Natalie's tears fell onto the pages, smudging the ink. This could have been Callum's handwriting. These could have been his words. She read for hours, absorbing every line, every confession, every plea for understanding. And then, near the end, she found something that made her heart stop. I met someone today who promised me peace. I don't know if I believe them. But I'm so tired. And if there's even a chance they're telling the truth, I think I have to try. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I can't do this anymore. It was the last entry. Natalie closed the notebook and pressed it to her chest, her whole body shaking. She knew what she had to do. That night, when Callum came back inside, she was waiting for him. I want to go with you tomorrow, she said. He frowned. What? To the clearing. I want to go with you. Nat, no. Yes. Her voice was firm. If you're going back, I'm coming with you. I need to understand. I need to see it through your eyes. It's not a place for you. Everywhere you go is a place for me. I'm your wife. He looked at her for a long time, conflict warring in his face. Finally, he nodded. Okay. Tomorrow morning. Natalie didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed beside Callum, listening to his breathing, wondering if this was the last night they'd share a bed, wondering if tomorrow she'd lose him for good. But she also wondered if maybe, just maybe, she could reach him in that clearing. If she could show Iris and the others that their peace was built on lies. That real love, real connection was worth the pain. When dawn broke, pale and cold, Callum got up and dressed in silence. Natalie did the same. They walked into the woods together, side by side, the fog curling around their feet like ghosts. Neither of them spoke. When they reached the clearing, the 5 figures were already there, waiting. Iris smiled when she saw Natalie. You came back. I did, Natalie said, her voice steady. Why? Because I love him. And I'm not giving up. Iris tilted her head, studying her. Love isn't always enough. Maybe not, Natalie said. But it's a start. Callum stood between them, torn, his face pale. Iris extended her hand toward him. You don't have to choose today, Callum. You can take more time. No, Natalie said sharply. He does have to choose. Right here. Right now. Callum's eyes went wide. Nat. I mean it. She turned to face him fully, her voice breaking but strong. I can't keep doing this. I can't keep waiting for you to decide if I'm worth fighting for. So choose. Them or me. Peace or love. Numbness or life. The clearing went silent. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. Callum looked at Iris. Then at Natalie. And for the first time in months, she saw something wake up behind his eyes. Something real. Natalie's heart pounded so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. The silence stretched unbearably long, thick as the fog wrapping around the trees. Callum stood frozen between 2 worlds, his face a war zone of confusion and pain. Iris remained still, her expression serene, her hand still outstretched. Waiting. Natalie forced herself not to move. Not to beg. She'd said what needed to be said. Now it was his turn. Callum, Iris said gently. You don't have to make this harder than it is. We've never asked anything of you. We've only given. She's asking you to suffer again. To feel again. Is that really what you want? Don't listen to her, Natalie said, her voice shaking. She's making it sound like feeling is the enemy. But it's not. Feeling is what makes us human. It's what makes us real. Real hurts, Callum whispered. I know, Natalie said. God, I know it does. But it also loves. It also laughs. It also hopes. And if you walk away from the pain, you walk away from all of it. Including me. Callum closed his eyes, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. Monroe stepped forward, his voice low and kind. Son, you've been carrying a weight that wasn't yours to carry. Your wife, she's strong. She'll be fine. You don't have to destroy yourself to save her. I'm not asking him to save me, Natalie said fiercely. I'm asking him to save himself. The real version. Not this hollow ghost you've turned him into. We've turned him into nothing, Iris said calmly. We've simply removed what was breaking him. No. You've removed what made him whole. Iris's smile didn't waver. You're welcome to believe that. Natalie took a step closer to Callum, her voice dropping to something raw and desperate. Do you remember the night I lost the baby? His eyes opened slowly. Do you remember holding me on the bathroom floor while I cried so hard I couldn't breathe? His jaw tightened. You didn't try to fix it. You didn't tell me it would be okay. You just held me. 4 hours. And when I finally stopped crying, you looked at me and said, we'll get through this. I don't know how, but we will. Together. A tear slipped down Callum's cheek. You felt everything that night, Callum. And it destroyed you. I know it did. But you didn't run. You stayed. You carried me when I couldn't carry myself. And that's the man I married. Not this. This empty shell who smiles at nothing. I couldn't carry you and me both, Callum said, his voice cracking. I tried. I swear I tried. But I was drowning, Nat. And I didn't know how to tell you. So tell me now. She reached for his hand. Tell me everything. The ugly parts. The broken parts. All of it. Because I can take it. We can take it. But only if you let me in. Callum looked down at her hand, hovering inches from his. What if I let you in and there's nothing left? He whispered. Then we'll build something new, she said. Together. From the ground up. The way we always have. His hand trembled. Iris spoke again, her voice soft as silk. Callum, she means well. But she doesn't understand what you found here. She can't. She hasn't felt the peace we offer. But you have. And you know deep down that this is where you belong. No, Natalie said sharply. He belongs with me. With the people who actually know him. Who've seen him at his best and his worst and love him anyway. Love isn't always enough to heal someone, Iris said. Maybe not, Natalie shot back. But it's a hell of a lot better than whatever this is. Callum's breathing grew ragged. His hand dropped to his side. Natalie's heart sank. And then he spoke. Iris, he said quietly. What happens if I leave? If I don't come back? Iris's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. You'll feel everything again. All the weight. All the pain. It will come rushing back, and it will be unbearable. That's why most people don't leave. Most people. Natalie said. So some do. Iris didn't answer. Natalie turned back to Callum. That means it's possible. That means you can walk away. Possible doesn't mean easy, Monroe said. Nothing worth having is easy, Natalie replied. Callum looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time in months she saw him. The real him. Scared. Exhausted. But present. I don't know if I'm strong enough, he said. You are, Natalie said. I've seen you be strong 1,000 times. And when you're not, I'll be strong for you. That's what marriage is. That's what love is. His lip quivered. Please, she whispered. Come home. Callum stood there, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. And then, slowly, he reached out. And took her hand. Natalie nearly collapsed with relief. Iris's face hardened, just for a second, before the serene mask slipped back into place. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," Callum said, his voice hoarse. "But it's mine to make." Natalie pulled him close, wrapping her arms around him, holding him like he might disappear if she let go. "Let's go home," she whispered. He nodded against her shoulder. They turned and started walking out of the clearing, Natalie's hand gripping his tightly. But before they reached the tree line, Iris called out, "Callum." He stopped. Natalie's stomach twisted. "You'll be back," Iris said. Not a threat. Just a statement. Calm. Certain. Callum didn't turn around. But Natalie did. She met Iris's gaze, her eyes blazing. "No. He won't." And then she led him into the trees. They walked in silence for a long time, the forest swallowing the clearing behind them. Natalie didn't let go of his hand. Didn't slow down. She just kept moving, one foot in front of the other, until the cabin came into view. When they stepped inside, Callum sank onto the couch and put his head in his hands. Natalie sat beside him, her hand on his back. "I feel it," he said quietly. "All of it. It's already coming back. I know. It hurts. I know." He looked at her, his eyes red and raw. "What if I can't do this?" "Then we'll figure it out. One day at a time. 1 hour at a time if we have to." "I don't want to go back there, Nat. But I'm scared I will." "Then we'll make sure you don't." "How?" She thought for a moment, then stood and walked to the kitchen. She grabbed a notepad and a pen and came back. "We're going to make a list," she said. "A list of what?" "Reasons to stay. Reasons to fight. Things that make life worth living, even when it's hard." Callum stared at her like she was insane. "I'm serious," she said. "Every time you feel like going back, we'll read this list. And we'll add to it. And we'll remind ourselves why we're doing this." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he took the pen. "Okay," he said. "You start." Natalie smiled, tears slipping down her cheeks. You're number one." Callum's face crumpled, and he started to cry. She pulled him into her arms and held him while he sobbed. Months of buried pain finally breaking free. And for the first time in a long time, she felt hope. The days that followed were the hardest of Natalie's life. Callum struggled. Some mornings he could barely get out of bed. The weight he'd been avoiding crashed down on him all at once, and there were moments when Natalie saw him staring out the window toward the woods, that same faraway look creeping back into his eyes. But every time she pulled him back. She read him the list. She sat with him in silence. She held him when he cried and let him rage when he needed to. And slowly, painfully, he started to come back. One morning, 3 weeks after they'd left the clearing, Callum woke up and made her breakfast. Scrambled eggs and toast. Nothing fancy. But when he set the plate in front of her, he smiled. A real smile. Small. Fragile. But real. Natalie's eyes filled with tears. "What?" he asked. "I missed you," she whispered. He sat down across from her and took her hand. "I'm still here," he said. "I'm still trying." "I know." They ate in silence, the morning sun streaming through the window, warming the room. And for the first time in months, Natalie felt like they were going to be okay. Not perfect. Not healed. But okay. And that was enough. That afternoon, Callum suggested they take a walk. Not into the woods. Just around the property. Natalie agreed, and they walked side by side, the autumn air crisp and cool. "I've been thinking," Callum said after a while. "About therapy. Real therapy. Not whatever that was in the clearing." Natalie's heart swelled. "I think that's a great idea." "I'm scared," he admitted. "Me too. But we'll do it together." He nodded. They walked a little farther, and then Callum stopped. "There's something I need to say." Natalie turned to face him. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "For shutting you out. For making you feel like you weren't enough. You were always enough, Nat. I didn't know how to let you see me broken. You don't have to be whole to be loved, she said softly. You just have to be honest. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. I love you, he whispered. I love you too. They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other, the world quiet around them. And when they finally pulled apart, Callum looked back toward the house. Let's go home, he said. Natalie smiled. Yeah, let's go home. As they walked back, hand in hand, Natalie glanced over her shoulder one last time, toward the tree line. The woods were silent, still, and she knew, deep in her bones, that they'd never go back. Because they'd found something stronger than peace. They'd found each other. And that was worth every bit of pain it took to get there. The weeks turned into months, and winter settled over the cabin like a blanket. Snow covered the trees, transforming the forest into something beautiful and clean. Nothing like the dark, haunted place Natalie had chased Callum through that awful October morning. They started therapy in early November. A woman named Dr. Vivian Chen, who worked out of a small office in town. She was patient, calm, and she didn't flinch when Callum told her about the Stillwater Circle. She just nodded, made notes, and asked him how it made him feel. At first, Callum couldn't answer. But slowly, session by session, he started to find the words. I felt like I was disappearing, he said one afternoon, his voice quiet. And the worst part was I didn't care. I wanted to disappear. It felt easier than trying to be a person. Dr. Chen leaned forward slightly. And now, Callum glanced at Natalie, who sat beside him, her hand resting on his knee. Now it still feels hard, he said. But I don't want to disappear anymore. Natalie squeezed his leg gently, her throat tight. That's progress, Dr. Chen said. Real, important progress. After the session, they sat in the truck in the parking lot, the heater running, watching the snow fall in soft, lazy flakes. Do you think I'll ever feel normal again? Callum asked. I don't know, Natalie said honestly. But I think you'll feel like yourself. And that's better than normal. He turned to look at her. How are you so sure? Because I've seen you fight for it. Every single day. And that tells me you're not done yet. Callum reached over and took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. I couldn't do this without you. You could, she said. But I'm really glad you don't have to. They drove home in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes after surviving something terrible together. But not everything was easy. There were still hard days. Days when Callum woke up and the weight was too much. Days when he couldn't get out of bed, couldn't eat, couldn't do anything but stare at the ceiling and wonder if he'd made the right choice. On those days, Natalie didn't push. She just stayed close. One particularly brutal morning in mid-December, Natalie found Callum sitting on the back porch in his coat, staring into the woods. It was barely dawn, the sky a pale gray, and the cold was biting. She grabbed a blanket and went outside, draping it over his shoulders before sitting down beside him. You okay? She asked softly. I heard them last night, he said. Natalie's blood went cold. What? In my dream. Iris. Monroe. All of them. They were calling me, telling me to come back. It was just a dream. I know. His voice cracked. But it felt so real. And when I woke up, I wanted to go. I wanted to walk into those woods and find them. Natalie's heart broke. But you didn't. No. I didn't. He turned to look at her, his eyes haunted. But I thought about it. For a long time. She took his hand. Thank you for telling me. I'm scared, Nat. What if one day I do go? What if I can't stop myself? Then I'll come after you, she said fiercely. Just like I did before. And I'll bring you back. Every single time. You shouldn't have to. Maybe not. But I will anyway. Because that's what we do. We fight for each other. Callum's face crumpled, and he leaned into her, his head on her shoulder. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Yes, you do. You just don't believe it yet. They sat there until the sun rose fully, painting the snow in shades of pink and gold. And when Callum finally stood, he didn't look toward the woods. He looked at her. "Let's go inside," he said. "I'll make us breakfast." Natalie smiled. "I'd like that." Christmas came quietly. They didn't have much money for gifts, but they didn't need much. Natalie bought Callum a new journal, leather-bound, with blank pages waiting to be filled. "For your thoughts," she said when he unwrapped it. "The ones you're ready to write down." He stared at it for a long moment, then pulled her into a hug. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick. Callum's gift to her was simpler but no less meaningful. He'd carved a small wooden bird, delicate and detailed, its wings spread mid-flight. "I made it in the garage," he said, almost shy. "I remembered you saying once that you loved cardinals. How they always came back, no matter how cold it got." Natalie held it in her hands, her eyes filling with tears. "It's perfect." They spent the day together, just the two of them, cooking a small meal and watching old movies. It wasn't extravagant, but it was theirs. And it was enough. That night, as they lay in bed, the lights from the Christmas tree casting soft colors across the room, Callum turned to her. "I have something else I want to give you," he said. "Callum, you already." "It's not a thing," he interrupted. "It's a promise." Natalie went still. He took her hand, his thumb brushing across her knuckles. "I promise that I'm going to keep fighting. Every day. Even when it's hard. Even when I don't want to. I'm going to fight to stay here. With you. Because you're worth it. We're worth it." Tears spilled down Natalie's cheeks. "Callum. And I promise that I'm going to be honest with you. About everything. The good days and the bad days. No more hiding. No more pretending." She nodded, unable to speak. "And I promise," he continued, his voice breaking, "that I'm going to love you the way you deserve to be loved. Fully. Completely. With everything I have." Natalie pulled him close, holding him tight. "I love you," she whispered. "So much." "I love you too." They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other, safe and whole. January arrived with bitter cold and relentless snow. The cabin felt smaller, cozier, like a refuge from the world outside. Callum continued therapy. Started taking medication that helped level out the worst of the lows. He still had hard days, but they were fewer now. And when they came, he didn't hide them anymore. He talked. He wrote in his journal. He let Natalie in. One afternoon, while Natalie was making soup, Callum came into the kitchen holding his journal. "Can I read you something?" he asked. She turned off the stove and sat down at the table. "Of course." He opened to a page near the middle, his handwriting messy but earnest. "I used to think that being strong meant not needing anyone," he read. "That if I could just handle everything on my own, I'd be enough. But I was wrong. Strength isn't about carrying everything alone. It's about knowing when to ask for help. It's about letting the people who love you hold you up when you can't stand on your own. Natalie taught me that. She saved my life. Not by fixing me, but by refusing to give up on me. Even when I'd given up on myself." His voice cracked on the last sentence. Natalie reached across the table and took his hand. "You saved yourself," she said gently. "I just reminded you that you could." "We saved each other," Callum said. She smiled through her tears. "Yeah, I think we did." By February something had shifted. Callum laughed more. Real laughs, the kind that came from deep in his belly. He started woodworking again, a hobby he'd abandoned years ago. The garage filled with half-finished projects, birds and small boxes and intricate carvings. He even started talking about the future. "I was thinking," he said one evening as they sat by the fire, "maybe we could take a trip this summer. Nothing big. Just a weekend somewhere. The coast, maybe." Natalie looked up from her book, surprised. "You want to travel?" "I want to do things with you again," he said. "Real things. Not just survive. But live." Her heart swelled. "I'd love that." "Good." He grinned. "Because I already looked up a few places." She laughed and shook her head. "You're unbelievable." "In a good way." In the best way. March brought the first signs of spring. The snow melted. The trees began to bud. The world felt like it was waking up. And so was Callum. One morning, Natalie woke to the smell of coffee and pancakes. She wandered into the kitchen to find Callum at the stove, humming. She hadn't heard him hum in over a year. "Good morning," he said, turning to smile at her. "Good morning," she said, her voice soft with wonder. He plated the pancakes and set them on the table, then poured her coffee just the way she liked it. They ate together, sunlight streaming through the windows, the radio playing quietly in the background. "This is nice," Natalie said. "It is," Callum agreed. She studied him for a moment. "You seem happy." He paused, considering. "I think I am. Or at least, I'm getting there. I'm proud of you." He reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "I'm proud of us." After breakfast, they went for a walk around the property. The ground was soft and muddy, the air fresh and clean. Everything felt new. As they walked, Callum stopped suddenly. "What is it?" Natalie asked. He pointed toward the tree line. "I want to go into the woods." Her stomach tightened. "Callum." "Not to the clearing," he said quickly. "Just into the woods. I need to prove to myself that I can. That they don't have power over me anymore." Natalie hesitated. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure. But I need you with me." She took a deep breath, then nodded. "Okay. Let's go." They walked hand in hand into the forest, the same forest that had nearly taken him from her. But this time it felt different. The trees weren't menacing. The shadows weren't full of ghosts. It was just a forest. They walked for 20 minutes, farther than Natalie expected, until Callum stopped in a small clearing. Not the clearing. Just a quiet spot where the light filtered through the branches. "This is good," he said. "What are we doing here?" He turned to face her. "I wanted to say goodbye." "To what?" "To the person I was when I found them. To the fear. To the weight. All of it. I'm leaving it here." Natalie's eyes filled with tears. Callum closed his eyes and took a deep breath. "I'm letting it go." He stood there for a long moment, silent and still. And then he opened his eyes and smiled. "Okay," he said. "I'm ready." "Ready for what?" "To go home. To keep living. To keep fighting. To keep loving you." Natalie threw her arms around him, holding him tight. "I'm so glad I didn't lose you," she whispered. "You never will," he said. "I promise." They walked back to the cabin together, leaving the woods behind. And this time, when they stepped inside, Callum didn't look back. That night, as they curled up on the couch, Natalie asked him a question she'd been holding on to for months. "Do you ever think about them? The Stillwater Circle." Callum was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes. But not the way I used to." "What do you mean?" "I used to think they saved me. Now I realize they were just keeping me from saving myself." Natalie rested her head on his shoulder. "I'm glad you see that now." "Me too." "Do you think they're still out there?" "Probably. But they're not my problem anymore." She smiled. "Good." They sat in comfortable silence, the fire crackling softly. And for the first time since that terrible October morning, Natalie felt completely at peace. Spring turned to summer. The world bloomed. And so did they. They took that trip to the coast, spent 3 days walking on the beach and eating seafood and laughing until their sides hurt. Callum started volunteering at a community center, teaching woodworking to kids. He came home every week with stories and sawdust in his hair, his eyes bright. Natalie went back to painting, something she'd given up years ago. She filled canvases with color and light, and Callum hung every single one. They fought sometimes. Small arguments about dishes and schedules and nothing that really mattered. But they worked through them. Talked. Apologized. Moved forward. They were building a life. A real one. 1 year after Natalie had followed Callum into the woods, they stood together on the back porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. "Do you remember this day last year?" Natalie asked. I do, Callum said quietly. What do you think about it now? He thought for a moment. I think it was the worst day of my life. And also the best. How so? It was the day I almost lost everything. But it was also the day I started fighting to get it back. Natalie leaned into him, and he wrapped his arm around her. I'm glad you fought, she said. Me too. They stood there until the sun disappeared and the stars came out, bright and endless. Callum. Yeah. I love you. He kissed the top of her head. I love you too. More than I've ever loved anything. And in that moment, Natalie knew with absolute certainty that they were going to be okay. Not because the hard days were over, but because they'd learned how to face them together. And that made all the difference. Years later, when people asked Natalie how she and Callum made it through, she always gave the same answer. We didn't give up. Even when it would have been easier. Even when it hurt. We chose each other. Every single day. And Callum would smile and add, best decision I ever made. Because love isn't about finding someone who makes life easy. It's about finding someone worth fighting for. And they had found that in each other. So here's my question for you. When life gets hard, do you run from the people you love, or do you let them help carry the weight? Think about that and let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. The end came not with fireworks or grand declarations, but with quiet moments. Mornings where Callum woke up and chose to get out of bed. Evenings where Natalie came home to find him cooking dinner, humming that old song he used to sing. Nights where they fell asleep tangled together, safe in the knowledge that tomorrow they'd do it all again. Together. And that was the greatest victory of all. Because the Stillwater Circle had promised Callum peace. But Natalie had given him something better. She'd given him a reason to live. And in the end, that was all he needed.